Okay, this is a sequence of slides of the Sector 39 Permaculture Design course at Busoga High School in Kamuli. We've been working with this school indirectly for quite a few years now, and there are people in place who are interested in agroforestry, interested in permaculture, and interested in bringing kind of farming and growing and food growing into the school curriculum. School's in the Eastern District of Uganda, which is sort of on the edge really of the sort of developed bit, going into kind of more, should we say, wild country. It's kind of like a frontier town in some ways. What happens in Kamuli is important. Education is important. There's a very young population in Uganda, half the population under the age of 18. They're currently at school. You know, they've got smartphones. They've got access to the internet. It's a growing, young country that's really growing and receptive to new ideas and so forth. Farming, obviously, very close to the surface there. With very strong link to the land. I think 70% of Uganda still live in rural areas, and 90% of the food from the country is produced kind of locally and organically and so forth. But then again, no one's really ever invested in traditional farming economy and sort of peasant subsistence farming practices. And with a very young population, they're not necessarily experienced, really widely experienced farmers, and they all tend to copy each other. So you see very sort of similar patterns of production all over the place. So what we're doing here, and what these pictures are all about, is coming into the school and setting up some models, trying some different ways. Here we're designing and planting banana circles. The idea is that plants grow in guilds, they grow together in sort of as groups rather than individuals. Nature doesn't do monocultures. And we're getting people to look at soil and decomposition, and central to the idea of the banana circle is you excavate a mulch pit and you fill that full of rotting leaves and vegetation and grasses and so forth, and that in itself becomes a way of getting carbon into the ground and maintaining soil fertility over time, and also helping water infiltrate when you get sort of heavy torrential tropical rainfalls. It helps the water soak into the ground and exactly where you need it, and hold it where you need it in terms of your plants. And what we're doing here is we're planting bananas in the circle, but we're also putting surface growing sort of leguminous crops and sweet potatoes and beans and things like that into the so that we cover the soil and help build its fertility. And at the same time, we thought we'd try and start our first generation demonstration of biochar. And in this, going into the second part of the course, and over the weekend, we built our first retort kilns, sort of charcoal cookers that gasify the wood and create biochar. Here we wanted to demonstrate that you can make really good high quality charcoal, biochar quality charcoal, on an open fire. And we did actually two methods, although it doesn't come up quite so well in the photos, where we built a kind of a wok kiln shape in the ground, and we burnt sticks in there at very high temperature and then extinguished the fire by covering it in soil. And I just did an open conservation burn, and doing our first site visit on the course, doing our first sort of practicals, steps outside the classroom, gave a chance for everybody to lark about a bit and get to know each other. And this is sort of about the fourth day of the course, and already some really strong associations started to form, and a real kind of fun, mutually learning environment started to develop. So really great to be able to do to work like this, and to be able to work, bring together really quite mixed groups of people. The course was populated by people from 6 of them had been paid for by a German charity that worked with people who grew up in conflict zones, and young people especially, and others had come across from the world of permaculture and education. And we had a couple of retired civil servants, and really, really interesting mix of people to us, so teachers as well. And we had a couple of international participants as well from the UK. The reason why we're serious about biochar and cooking on wood gas is you can see here how they still cook at the school. and all that the pollution and the sort of the build up of actually potentially really flammable materials inside the cookhouse, all issues there. So these pictures are jumping between Richie teaching people basic survey skills, how to measure the fall and slope using very, very simple tools. We really like to demonstrate simple hand tool methods on PDC to be able to show how much you can do without necessarily, having really precise or expensive equipment. And the pictures here jumping between that and the biochar burn. Here's Mr. Dan, who's come from Wales with the Sector 39 team, and he's fashioned a hollow in the ground of a particular shape to encourage the sort of airflows around it, and he's going to demonstrate a fast hot burn, which you're then going to extinguish at a certain point by covering it with soil to produce charcoal, for which we can use for biochar. And here it is. It's setting off. Of course, we don't necessarily, all the necessary talks about fire regulations and stuff like that, but there's something really, really important here, is that the principle that Dan is demonstrating is wood gasification. And what's happening is that the bright, hot flame is consuming all the oxygen. So below it, the wood, it actually can't burn. It pyrolyzes and produces charcoal. And it's the combustion of those wood gases that creates a much hotter temperature that is what actually allows the pyrolysis of the wood to happen. Now, this is important for several different reasons, and this is the beginning of demonstrating a very, very important principle on the permaculture course, which is that carbon in soil is a very good thing. It's essentially the reverse of climate change. Plants can capture carbon from the atmosphere, and we can return it to the soil in the form of soil carbon. This could be compost and manure, as well as with pyrolyzed wood, with charcoal. But the point about the charcoal is that with all of these strategies, it increases the ability of the soil to hold water, and it increases the amount of surface area within the soil, and it creates habitat for soil microbes. And over time, it makes soil much more fertile and much more stable. So we're very excited to bring these ideas together, and here's our first demonstration of those on the PDC.